What's up, everybody? My name is Alpine Hippie, and welcome to my show, Low in Coverage, High in Entertainment, the show where I seek to show you guys the most unique sports that you probably have never heard of. My goal here mainly is to hunt down the sports that people are super passionate about. There's like a really big like cult following or regional following of them, and and that are just like ones that really people haven't heard of. I know there's like a few niche sports that like show up on like ESPN Ocho and stuff like that. You get like cornhole, things along that lines. I am looking to find the ones you guys like probably haven't heard of, and that are super popular in like their neck of the woods. I want to find the real athletes, the real diamonds in the rough, the ones that don't get the coverage that they deserve for the amazing physical feats they are able to accomplish. So without further ado, let's get started with the first sport that I'm going to be covering on this channel. The first sport that we are going to be covering on the channel is hurling. Now, hurling is from the country of Ireland. It is regarded as one of the, if not the oldest field sport in the country, and it is deeply ingrained into the culture and into the people who live there. The main reason that I picked this sport as the first one that we were going to be covering was I just wanted to find one that people were genuinely passionate about, like one that people were just psyched about, like the people that play it for just the love of the sport. And I also wanted it to have like a really, really strong regional following with like a lot of people who had something to say about it. So this one was really a slam dunk. It's also a just really entertaining sport with a lot of cool background to it as well. So without further ado, let's get into a little bit of the rules and gameplay of the sport. So, to start off, the primary tool that is used in the sport of hurling is the hurley stick. The hurley stick is an ash wood stick with a tin support wrapped around it. It is used to maneuver a small ball called a slutter. Now, a slutter, it is covered in leather. It's 115 grams, and you can maneuver it by either hitting it with the hurley stick. You can open palm slap it with your hand to pass it to a teammate, or you can actually hold the ball for 4 steps. It's kind of similar to like ultimate frisbee. You can have it in your hand for 4 steps, but once you have exhausted those 4 steps, you can actually transfer it back onto the hurley to balance while you run. It's really impressive how well these guys can do this, and you'll be seeing it a little bit more in the gameplay that I show later in the video. Now, to go a little bit more into the players, there are 15 players on each team. Each player is equipped with a helmet, with a face mask, similar to American football, but outside of that, they don't have any padding. It's a pretty physical sport. These guys get really bumping into each other and trying to, make their way through. And you have to remember that these guys are also wielding, sticks on top of it. So these guys take a beating. You have to respect their grit and their power. Now, getting more into how the game is played. The game itself is played on a field, liken it very similar to a soccer field, or football. On the field, the gameplay doesn't stop until a goal is scored. You score a goal by either getting the slaughter in the goalposts that are being guarded by the keeper for 3 points, or you can get it over or under the crossbar for 1 point. The game just continues in play unless a penalty is called or someone scores a goal. The game continues on until the time expires and a winner is called. Obviously, there's very specific rules that go into penalties, stuff like that, but I'm not going to go into the really deep specifics because I just kind of want to cover what I think is cool about the sport and the basic rules so people can kind of understand the gameplay. Now, without further ado, let's watch some of the gameplay of this sport. Now, just right out of the gate, you see how intense this sport is. I mean, they're throwing it about their teammates, they're hitting it around, they're switching it to their hand, moving it back to balance it on their hurley, and then popping it over and smacking it in for a goal for the team. I mean, watching these guys maneuver this thing with just their hand and the stick, with people doing this to them. I mean, look how physical this sport gets. I'd be terrified, and they just switch it back, move it around, and you just got to respect how well these guys can maneuver this under the strenuous circumstances that they must be in. They're popping it over, and you see how these guys react. I mean, they feel it. They have heart. They have soul. They care about these games, and you hate to see the hurt, but man, you love to see the passion. I mean, that's what makes sports what it is, and I love seeing it on the field. And just look how fast a possession can change. I mean, like all the way on the other side of the field, these poor guys, they just get no rest. I mean, one day you're just sitting over there telling your boys about the weekend you had, some of the highlights of the town, and then you blink and the ball's just right in your face with a bunch of guys, charging at you with sticks. This is truly, a battle of a sport, and I just love watching it every single time. Now, to speak a little bit more to the term battle with this sport. This sport was actually originally a simulation for battle. It would be young men preparing to, fight for their country, and they would play this sport in prep to, I'm sure, learn how to be physical and wield a weapon. That itself shows, why these guys care so much about it. It shows the connection that these men have to the game they're playing, and it really adds a big respect in my mind to these athletes and why they're playing this game. Watching a couple of the interviews from some of the notable players in the sport, I feel terrible they didn't release the names of these players in the interviews that I was watching, but they were sharing about how the most Irish thing that they could be from what their fathers were telling them was speaking the language and playing hurling. It is just so deeply ingrained into who they are, and I just love to see it. Just one more thing I want to highlight about this sport that I just thought was super cool, especially when we're touching down on the history to the country, is the modern play of the sport. So currently over in Ireland there are 32 different counties. Of these counties, they have different hurling clubs in the counties, and these clubs make up their county teams, and every year all of these counties compete against each other, and it really ends up being this battle of brethren to get to the best team, the best club, the best county club in the nation. And I just can't believe the honor that must be to represent your local town, and your family and such, as well as your nation, and paying homage to that. And I just think it's a beautiful thing. This is a sport that I would love to see in person. I would love to hopefully maybe I can travel there, see some intramurals in the Americas. This sport is also pretty popular in different parts of the UK as well as Australia, but I would love to see this in person. At the end of all these videos, I want to give it a rating. Man, I'm really fighting the urge to give this thing like a perfect rating. I love it. Maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. This is the first video of the channel, so I should probably more give this an 8 to give myself some room. Maybe a little down the line, if I feel I need to amend this rating, I will. But for the time, I think we're going to give it an 8. Just a real pleasure to watch this sport, and I really appreciate you guys coming along for the ride with me. So with all that being said, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and signing off.